Hello, everyone. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Huh.
We are here. We are live. Hey, goat. What's going on there? What's going on there, goat? Uh, so happy news. I am excited to announce that this Sunday at 7, or not Sunday, fuck. I, I had Sunday stuck in my head and I said the wrong name. This Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will be going live to premiere Konosuba Abridged and have a chat. Now, if you're thinking this is going to be like we show the full thing and we're quiet, we're muted through, it's not going to be that. We're not doing that anymore. This is a premiere, which basically means we're going to talk. Are we already having skill issues? Probably. Um, by the way, whose fan is going off in the background?
I think that's Sonic because
Oh,
it was quiet until he showed up. So,
No, that was
You
me.
can really pick that up?
oh my
Wow.
bad.
uh, but yeah, Konosuba is going to be debuting here on Twitch. Uh, we could technically press a button right now and make it live on YouTube, but
But
we're kind of worried about copyright stuff right now. We usually like to give it at least a week or so. This is the strangest thing that's ever happened, okay? We uploaded it. There were copyright notifications on it. No claims, no blocks, no strikes. They were like, "Hey, yeah, you're good. Go ahead. The only thing is that you can't monetize this video." And I was like, "Okay, we weren't going to anyway, but thanks." And that's it. That's literally it. We got three little copyright notifications, two for music and one for video, and all of them were like, "Yeah, the copyright holder just asked that you not be able to do any advertisement or to monetize this video." And I was like, "That's it? We're used to way, way worse." So, and this has happened before where it's gone through and then like a week or so later then the copyright stuff comes down. So we're not used to it actually happening correctly most of the time. So we're kind of just sitting here waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're not going to go live with the video just so it gets taken down from copyright stuff like 2 days after we go live. We're going to wait and we're going to wait for the copyright stuff to go through, then we're going to do it. And like usually after about a week you're pretty good. If nothing happens in a week, this is going to be the most interesting thing. Also, if the studio in charge of Konosuba, the rights holder for Konosuba, because a lot of the music is Konosuba, and it's Konosuba and Log Horizon. We got claimed for those two bits of music, or we got tagged for those two bits of music, and then Konosuba. But literally, the copyright holder was just like, "Yeah, just don't monetize. You'll be good." So, uh, I don't know if YouTube is necessarily getting better. I think it's now that our channel has some backing behind it.
hmm
The From an MCM. So I don't know all the details. I just know that if you have an MCM, YouTube tends to like treat you better.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what all that's about, but yeah. So, but we're teasing it a couple days early. We are going to be pausing it. We're going to be chatting with other people. We're going to be gossipy little bitches, as it were. And yeah, so it's not a replacement for the episode. It's just not. And I am going to tell you right now, there are two versions. There's the YouTube version, which has a clean ending. And then there's the Patreon, which has the not clean ending. So I'm not going to say it's squeaky clean, but we replaced a lot of actual sex talk with food puns and innuendos. And then if you want it's not 18 plus or NSFW, but like if you want if you want the non-food version, the one that's actually dirty, that's over on Patreon. Become a patron today. Button down below somewhere if you want to join, and it's not super expensive. $1 and you're a patron. That's it. And as soon as a thing is done and we post it on Patreon, there's no tiered list. When we say it's live, it's on Patreon. It's live for everybody. That all of our paid ones. Dirty talking and food. Tale as old as time. Yeah. Want the horny? You gotta pay. Yeah. If you want the extra horny, you have to pay for it. But
Makes
also,
sense.
I'm doing a lot of stuff with some of the projects that I'm on, where we make a YouTube version and a Patreon version for some things, and so we, episode 2 of Solo Leveling isn't gonna have a Patreon version, but episode 3 might. Episode 3 definitely might, considering how that gets started. So yeah, all right. Any other updates that we're gonna be able to talk about? Okay, good talk.
Specific? I can't think of any.
Yeah, and not on our end that or on my end that's important enough to discuss here.
Okay.
Mm.
Oh, is the fan coming from Moon's
That
thing?
makes sense.
Ah.
It was. The fan's off.
Like,
And I did say that
noticing your
earlier.
Thing like chiming up too, yeah.
That's because I'm eating,
Mm.
and it's
Oh.
picking up some other sounds.
Hungry.
Very.
Mm.
Hungry.
Well, I'm basically vamping and stalling for time because it's Moon's day to read.
Mm.
Yeah. Unless someone buys me the book, it should not be my day to read.
Oh damn! You don't have volume 6, huh?
Mm-mm. And I don't have the money to throw at it right now. Otherwise, I would absolutely buy it.
Mm.
Anybody got $10 on them that they could throw at Moon? Come on, chat. I know somebody has $10. All right. Oh no. Oh, I wonder if I wonder if they've gotten over their cold.
Who?
Star.
Oh.
Oh, pardon me.
Bless you.
If you asked me 2 days ago, I would have, but no. Well, it's a pity we don't prepare in advance enough.
Yeah, well, for me, I kind of do this when we ended last week, but I was also in a state of like, well, not much I could do with it right now.
So
Here.
your goat has kids to feed. It's me. I'm the kid. Technically, young goats are called kids, right? You're waiting for tax. Yeah, same.
Yeah, me too.
I'm waiting to get my.
Yep.
I'm waiting to get my tax stuff for Fat Dog, and then I can file.
Mm.
It's a pity you don't have foresight. Apparently, I mean, I have hindsight. It's really good.
Foresight's what it's called when you have glasses, right? That's what I have.
Nearsighted.
I have
farsighted.
contacts in.
I don't remember if I'm nearsighted or farsighted, actually.
Is it weird that I went through both of those spectrums actually at some point in my life?
Hey, it happens.
Like, I had glasses for nearsightedness and then for farsighted right after. I think the nearsighted glasses fucked up my vision for far reading and whatnot, and far vision in general.
How do you not? Good times. All right, so let me go through. Okay, so we're at volume 6. Yes. All right. That is where did we end? Was it chapter 5?
Chapter 6. Nope, chapter 6.
6. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Cool. shows how far behind I was. A speedy resolution. That's where we're at. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to read along with us, guys, we're going to be starting at chapter 6, a speedy resolution. Yeah, you chewed through 38% of the book last time.
Yep.
Yeah. I got some living up to do. Damn. All right. Chapter 6, a speedy resolution. Before I talk about how things resolve themselves, there's one factor I'd like to discuss. There was a child born into this world with an abnormality. The word abnormality probably makes you think of a physical condition, but most children like this look normal by all accounts. The opposite was in fact true. The only thing normal about him was his appearance. This child possessed a unique ability when he was born. You see, there were children who could run abnormally fast, had superhuman strength, had enhanced hearing, had a body lighter than a feather, or were conversely incredibly heavy. Could freeze anything they touched, could breathe fire, had poison tipped fingers, could teleport short distances, could shoot laser beams from their eyes, could nullify any and every poison, could spend an entire day awake without feeling tired, or it could have sex with hundreds of women at the same time without being soft. God damn it, Rudy. Such a child, who was possessed of superhuman abilities when they were born, was called a blessed child. If they possessed an ability that wasn't particularly useful or even unfavorable, then they were deemed a cursed child. But we'll leave that aside for now. Now that we have taken into account the existence of blessed children, let's talk about the Sharon Royal Palace. Currently, there were 7 princes in the palace. The oldest was 32, and the youngest was, well, the youngest didn't really matter. In this country, when a prince was born, he was put in command of a number of imperial guards. The guards under a prince's command would be his eyes and ears, so to speak, and would teach him how to influence people. If he played his cards right, the number of his guards would increase, and if he did something bad, they would decrease. When a king passed away, the prince with the most guards under his command would inherit the throne. That was the tradition in this country. The more guards you had under your command, the more power you wielded. Under this system, the person with the most guards under his command was the first prince. He was aware of his position as the oldest, and while he was a bit arrogant, he still conducted himself in a way that was appropriate for a member of the royal family. As a result, he had nearly 30 guards under his command. So who was it that had the fewest guards under their command, then? Was it the one scorned by the soldiers, the 7th prince, Pax Sharon? It was true that he had few guards under his command. At the moment, he only had 3. At one point, the number had dwindled to just 1, but Pax acquired a contract in the lawless area where the slave market was held and increased that number by 1. I'll get to the 3rd member in a moment. Pax didn't have many guards, but there was someone who had even fewer than him. That was the 3rd prince, Zenoba Sharon. He had exactly 0 people under his command. He didn't even have a single guard. Just a few years prior, he'd had Ginger, the 12th strongest knight in the kingdom, under his command. But even she, the last of his guards, was traded away to Pax for a certain figurine. Ginger had tried to submit her resignation, but Pax took her family hostage in a panic, forcing her to grudgingly become the 3rd member of his guard. Now then, about the 3rd prince, Zenoba Sharon. He was actually a blessed child, born with a superhuman ability which made him unusually strong. Although his power was not a terribly exceptional one, the king still rejoiced when he was born, for this blessed child would be of great help to his country in the future. Considering the conflict zone just north of the kingdom, the birth of anyone whose strength could be used in battle called for people to throw their hands up in celebration. Zenoba's birth mother was a concubine, but his birth came as a joy to her, an assurance that she'd fulfilled her role. The day when the hands raised in joy came falling down, was just 3 years after Zenoba's birth, when the 4th prince was born. fourth numerically, but the firstborn to the crowned queen. The child was treated like a precious jewel, eliciting joy from all as a party was thrown in celebration. In the midst of that party, the 3-year-old Zenoba shuffled up to where his brother was sprawled out in his bed. He reached out, touched his brother, and said, "How cute!" And "You're just like a doll." Everyone smiled as they listened. Zenoba was very fond of dolls, so it warmed their hearts that he likened his little brother to his favorite thing. But then Zenoba tore his little brother's head off as if he were a doll, and the party erupted in a pandemonium of screams. The king and queen were driven mad, condemning Zenoba's mother to exile. Zenoba remained in the country, in part because he was still young, but also because he was a blessed child. That was just how important blessed children were in this world. But, as a result of that incident, Zenoba's guards dwindled from 8 to just 3. On top of that, the king ordered that he was not allowed to have more than that number. The next incident occurred when he was 15. Although Zenoba still was a doll fanatic, he was now at an age where he could now distinguish between human and doll. That was why he was paired with a wife, the daughter of a powerful family that had withstood countless attacks from the country of Vista in the conflict zone. It seemed the king intended to put Zenoba on the front lines in the event of a war with Vista. The wedding ceremony concluded seamlessly, but that was the only thing that was seamless, because the day after their first night together, his bride was discovered in his bed with her head missing. Zenoba had pulled it off. The bride's family, mad with anger that their daughter had been murdered, rose in rebellion, only to be suppressed. The king took 2 people from Zenoba's guard and confined him to the inside of the castle. Then he tried to take Zenoba's favorite doll from him, but each of the soldiers who tried to carry out that duty had their heads ripped off. After that incident, Zenoba became known as the head-ripping prince. Everything he had done could not be overlooked, even as a blessed child. He was a madman who had killed the king's legitimate heir and his own wife. The king even began to consider execution, but as long as Zenoba had a doll, everything was fine. As long as he was periodically gifted a doll, he caused no harm. So, with time, the king began to see him as a dangerous weapon that just happened to have the shape of a human. After that, Zenoba was treated with exceptional caution. And that brings us to the present day. I'm telling the story with bravado now, but I only found all of this out after it was all over. At the time, I didn't know that Zenoba was the strongest military power in the Sharon Kingdom, or that the Sharon Kingdom possessed. Several hours passed after Zenoba told me to leave everything to him and strode off. He came back with his lips spread in a huge grin. In comparison, my lips were probably stretched taut in a line. Zenoba just beamed at me as he held something in his hand. "Master, how about this? Now, will you make me your pupil?"
Ow, 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 ow! Stop it! Please, elder brother, stop!
"Shut it, Pax!" Zenoba hissed.
Ah!
The person he dragged in with him was his brother, Pax Sharon. I could see blood dripping from where Zenoba grasped his head. It wasn't
Good.
Pax's blood, though. It was Zenoba's body, which was entirely drenched in red. I lost the ability to speak. I didn't know what was going on. I thought we'd had a lighthearted conversation about him being my pupil or something, but somewhere along the line it had become a gore fest. A smiling, blood-covered face only had appeal when it was that of a beautiful woman. The expression just looked bizarre when it was being worn by a gangly, nerdy-looking older brother character. A number of people filed in behind Zenoba as if they'd been following him. The first was Ginger, with her sword unsheathed. 3 more knights in similar attire crowded in after her. "Stop it, Zenoba! Take your hands off him!" That's right, Zenoba! Please get a hold of yourself!" Hidden behind the knights were 2 princes dressed in expensive-looking clothing. Although I called them both princes, one was a bit too old to really fit the title. Regardless, there were 9 of us, myself included, crammed into a tight little space that was this narrow room. "Elder brother, did you know that Pax took the soldiers' families hostages so he could force them to do his bidding?" No. And I do mean soldiers. The ones under the command of our father, not his own personal guard." Zenoba was grinning, mouth stretched wide as he spoke. It seems he took Ginger's family hostage as well. Is that true? Yes, sir, Ginger answered, her sword still held aloft. The smile remained on Zenoba's face. Elder brothers, do you remember Roxy? Yes, she was Pax's tutor. A king-tier water magician who taught our country's soldiers the secrets to facing a magician in battle. A person to whom we owe a great debt. Didn't our father try to officially invite her to stay at the royal palace? And was it not Pax's foolish actions that sabotaged and destroyed our relationship with her? Well, yes, that's true. Pax was in the wrong, but still you... And yet, despite this, see for yourselves, her pupil, Lord Rudius, is being insulted like this by Pax's doing, the very pupil that Master Roxy said had even more talent than herself. Lord Rudius, a true genius. Zenoba's smile never once faltered. You always looked so bored when you attended Parliament, but you were actually listening? As your brother, this brings me great relief. I was sure that you didn't care at all about what happened to our country. Elder brother, I'm only interested in dolls. All I'm doing now is revealing the truth of Pax's unlawful behavior, and there's only one reason I'm doing that, Zenoba declared, lifting Pax into the air.
Ow!
Lord Rudius is a wonderfully skilled, unsurpassable figurine maker. I cannot forgive someone like that being used as a pawn in Pax's revenge scheme.
Ah! My head's gonna split open! It's gonna split! Gonna split!
Pax's wail of pain reverberated throughout the room. Elder brother, if you decide to take Pax's side in this, I will act out. The three knights and the two princes went deathly pale. I wanted to jump in and say, "You're already doing the acting out part just fine." But the chill in the air told me that his definition of act out was on another level from what he'd already done. I'm not asking for anything difficult, Zenoba said. I just want to save this figurine maker, and Pax's bad behavior is inhibiting my ability to do that. But without Pax, the slave market is... Elder brother, please don't make me say it again. Your younger brother's head is about to be torn off. Zenoba wasn't smiling anymore. 1 second. I realized I needed to move a thing over. I was not expecting to be reading today, so my whole setup is changed.
Mm.
Oh, no. All right,
Yeah.
there we go.
The money issues suck. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's understandable though.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, Shim, we can hear all that.
oh, sorry, my bad. I was trying to peel something open.
Oh, we could tell. All right.
I was
Yeah.
thinking it was like a balloon or something. So you're like, is someone messing with a balloon?
He's
like,
making balloon
Yes, I'm
animals,
practicing
man.
drawing
He's trying
balloon
to
animals. Yeah.
Nice.
It was squeaky.
I had no
Sorry,
idea.
I was trying to.
Oh, you're
No,
good.
you're good.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on. I was just confused, wondering if the words torn off were a metaphor. The one thing I did know was that the person in command of this situation was Zenoba. Go on, my pupil. You could do it, even though you're still scary as hell.
No, stop it! Let go! Ginger! Save me! Don't you care what happens to your family?
My family? They were all saved by Master Regard last night, she answered.
What?
Pax struggled in his brother's grasp as Ginger coolly refused him. Regard had saved someone? Well, he was always saving people. I had no idea what was going on, but it seemed like things had been proceeding behind the scenes. Now you see where things stand, elder brothers. I have the least authority amongst us princes, and that is why I've come to enlist your help. If you should refuse, I will act out with every last ounce of my strength I possess. From this distance, I could take one or perhaps both of your heads and rip them off, though I'm sure the court magicians would burn me alive afterwards. With this, one of the two, whom I assumed were the first and second princes, finally broke. Oh, okay, fine. We'll do what you ask. Be sure to look into this thoroughly, yes? Also, that girl who created all that fuss 2 years ago, Lilia, is being held captive somewhere in this castle. I'd like you to secure her as well. Yes, of course. I'll be sure to let Father know, too. At that time, I didn't know that Zenoba was a blessed child. I just thought he had a ridiculous amount of confidence for someone so gangly. It's dangerous to overestimate your own strength like that, I thought, though it struck me as seriously odd how the two princes seemed so intent on defending Pax. But as it turned out, I was mistaken. They were just terrified of Zenoba, the kind of terror you felt when faced with a bomb that was seconds from exploding. Even as I was released from the barrier, I still didn't understand. Dumbstruck, I watched as Pax was carried off, Lilia was released, and the whole issue came to a close. Several days passed before I finally learned everything that had happened. Let's start with how Lilia wound up being detained in the first place. At the time, she was suspected of being a spy from a foreign power. When she was interrogated, she invoked Paul and Roxy's name, which managed to keep her out of prison, but didn't completely dispel their suspicions. Instead, she was confined to the palace. When information about the displacement incident finally reached the Sharon Kingdom and it seemed like she might be released, Pax interfered and began manipulating the flow of information, which meant Lilia and Aisha were forced to remain inside the castle. When Roxy fled, Pax established contracts in the slave market. Through them, he hired his own private army, then took some of his father's soldiers' families hostage to force their obedience. Those soldiers searched the slums in secret and found where the hostages were being kept. But rescuing them proved difficult because they were heavily guarded. Frustratingly, they had to wait. And the days slipped by. It was during that time that Aisha made her escape and the prince gave orders to pursue her. Reluctantly, the soldiers did as they were told and managed to track her down. That was when I appeared and made a magnificent show of carrying her off. Once the soldiers saw how I was trying to help Aisha, plus how I could cast spells without chanting, they realized I was Roxy's pupil. That was when they began to devise their plan. First, they started a fight in the slave market to throw it into chaos. Then they used the fact that Aisha had been kidnapped by a mysterious man to get Pax's private army moving. After that, they planned to explain their circumstances to me and ask me for my assistance in rescuing the hostages. I would help them attack the place where the hostages were being held now that its security was weakened, and in return, they would find a way to save Lilia for me. But before any of that could happen, I sent my letter to the palace, mistakenly thinking Roxy was still in the country, and was then lured in and confined by Pax. If I had just waited another day before sending my letter, I could have listened to the soldiers' stories and been the one to lure Pax into a trap instead. Perhaps the man god had intended for me to save Aisha and then write my letter, not the other way around. Actually, no, I think this is exactly what the man god intended. If I were just looking down, this would be hilarious. It's like, do it this way. Why? Because it's funny.
It's
I
fun.
honestly think that's the sole motivation at this point.
Yeah, probably.
My
I guess if
capture
you're the
should have
man
been
god, you get bored really easy.
yeah. My
I'm
capture should have
bored.
been a setback.
Entertain me.
My
Mhm.
capture should have been a setback for the soldiers, but when they went to the inn to find me, they found Regard instead. He listened to what they had to say, got all riled up, and soon enough, he'd rescued all the hostages. Once the hostages were safely returned to their families, Regard intended to charge the castle. The soldiers tried to tell him they would do it themselves, but he wouldn't listen. Ginger, meanwhile, wasn't made aware of this. The soldiers had left her out of it because they worried it would be dangerous to involve someone under Pax's command. Poor thing. However, when the hostages were released, Ginger's family was spotted among them, so the soldiers took them into protective custody as well. Ginger, thinking this was a good opportunity for her to make a move, passed on my Regard figurine to Zenoba, the man with the most brute strength in this country. She'd calculated that he might see me as a valuable source of information and ally himself with me, but was also motivated by the fact that she'd sworn allegiance to Zenoba. Why would someone like Ginger remain loyal to someone who had traded her off in exchange for a figurine? There had to be a story here. Anyway, the very next day, Zenoba killed 2 of Pax's Imperial guards before taking Pax hostage. With that, the soldiers never got to carry out the last step of their plan. Instead, the incident came to a surprising close. See, it's all this behind-the-scenes stuff that was left out of the anime that's even funnier.
Yeah.
After all of that came to light, the king handed down his orders. First, Pax was to be banished from the country. It was unfortunate that this meant the loss of his contracts in the slave market, but it set a terrible precedent that he'd not only taken his soldiers' families captive, but the family of one of his imperial guards as well. On top of that, instead of gently coaxing a magician such as myself to join the royal family, he took me captive and tried to use me as bait to lure Roxy so he could assault and kill her. In the interest of maintaining appearances, they claimed Pax was being sent off to study abroad. In reality, they sent him to the King Dragon realm to be kept as a hostage, one whose death would be inconsequential. As for Zenoba, he was also banished from the country. Again, they officially claimed he was studying abroad. His banishment was proposed by the first and second princes, who claimed the situation was partially his fault. In all honesty, they were probably just terrified of having such a nuclear warhead nearby, not knowing when he would explode or if they would be caught in the blast. The king seemed reluctant to let Zenoba go, but it seemed that Dawes could no longer reliably rein him in, and he was tired of all the problems Zenoba had caused thus far. Lilia was released, although some still claimed that she was a spy from another country. To curry favor with Pax, she'd apparently been gathering information for him behind the scenes. It just went to show how amazing our Lilia was that she could do something like that even in captivity. In order to silence those claims, she was to be escorted all the way to Paul, not to the Asura kingdom, but to Paul. It did make sense, given that even if they did send her off to the Asura kingdom, or Asura, however you want to pronounce it, no one there could verify her identity. Paul currently had stronger ties to the Holy Kingdom of Milis. And it was probably better to stay there than arouse unnecessary suspicion by returning home. I was worried they might kill her on the way to keep her from talking, but Ginger volunteered to go along with her for protection. Zenoba had apparently commanded her to protect his master's family. Some of the soldiers, whom Regerd had saved, also offered to accompany them, so that put my mind at ease. As for myself, the king personally invited me to stay in the region, offering to prepare a place for me as a court magician. Given his tone of voice and the way he sighed as he spoke, I could tell he knew he was asking the impossible, and of course, I refused. When I did, the king sighed again and told me I could leave. That was all. There was no apology. The offenders were a royal family, after all. They weren't the type to apologize. The beast folk had been more honorable in that respect. Once everything was over and I tried to leave the royal palace, Zenoba clung to me in tears.
Master, are you truly going to leave? Are you truly going to leave your pupil behind?
I'm sorry, but I have to hurry along on my journey.
Then could you at least make me a figurine before you go?
Those take a lot of time to make, so I'm afraid I can't.
No!
The fact that I wouldn't make a figurine for Zenoba made him so sad that he clung to me and wailed in anguish. By now, I'd heard that he was a blessed child. I knew he was the prince who had massacred people by ripping their heads off, and I was on edge, wondering if he would suddenly decide to take my head off as well. Don't get me wrong, I was grateful, but that didn't change the fact that he was terrifying. If we happen to meet again, I'll teach you how to make one of my figurines from scratch, I said.
What? He exclaimed. No, but I mean, are you sure? Isn't that a top secret skill of your trade?
What kind of pupil would you be if I didn't teach you anything?
Master!
He wailed and threw me in the air. I slammed against the ceiling. Oh no! Zenoba screeched. Ginger! Healing magic! Yes, sir. Ginger chanted a healing spell, and my wounds closed. Zenoba, who had nearly killed me, was now pale and flustered. He looked relieved when I rose back up, healthy again. I seriously considered excommunicating him right then and there, then reconsidered quickly. I didn't want him to rip my head off. All right, Master. Stay safe. I don't know where I'll be shipped off to, but I have a feeling I'll eventually run into you again. Yeah, you too. Zenoba continued sobbing as he nodded, watching me go. Ginger watched the two of us with tears running down her cheeks as well. And that was how matters in the Sharon Kingdom came to a close. Lily and Aisha had been saved and sent off to Paul. Pax was banished from the country. I gained a pupil in the form of Zenoba. Some parts didn't go as smoothly as they could have, since I didn't follow the man god's advice perfectly. Still, everything ended in the best way possible. It still felt like I was dancing right into the palm of the god's hand. It felt like I was watching a terrible play unfold. And yet, everything seemed to be going in the right direction. Lily and Aisha were both in good health. I didn't know what to think about Zenoba, but at least he didn't harbor any ill feelings toward me. I was sure Pax still hated me, but he'd been booted out of the country without any pawns to manipulate. Leaving the ugly details aside, everything had turned out in a way beneficial to me. Come to think of it, none of the paths the man god had directed me on had led to disadvantageous results. Perhaps it was best to put more trust in him. No, a con artist only started duping people after they'd proven themselves successful once. I needed to exercise caution until I could be certain he was trustworthy. That said, a promise was a promise. I wouldn't take a hostile attitude with him next time. Oh, God. Chapter 7. The Birth of My Little Sister, the Maid. We were at an inn in a small town within the Sharon Kingdom. It was here that the road forked, one path leading to the holy country of Milis and the other to the Asura Kingdom. This was where I was going to part with Lily and the others. Lily and I sat at a table together, facing each other. That's right, Kennel Master is really incredible. If he gets serious, he can make rain flood over the forest and then freeze it solid. You're talking about magic, right? That's amazing. Of course. I have even more astonishing stories than that one. Want to hear? Yes, please tell me about him. Eris and Aisha's voices flooded in from outside the window. Eris was boasting about the Kennel Master's accomplishments. I smiled bitterly and turned my attention to Lilia. The two of us had talked a bit here and there in the past, but now, how was I supposed to approach her now? While I was thinking, pardon me, Lilia took the opportunity to strike up a conversation first. Let me thank you once again, Lord Rudius. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am that you've saved my life, not just once, but twice now. Please don't worry about it, I said. I didn't do anything this time. No, I heard how you caught a whisper of information about us and went out of your way to come to the Sharon Kingdom, Lilia said as she bowed her head low. All I did was follow the man god's directions, and then needlessly got myself stuck in a trap and needed help to escape it. If I still had the nerve to demand gratitude after that, I should have been able to use that same nerve to accomplish more in my previous life. Please direct that gratitude to Regard and Eris instead. They're the ones who acted appropriately and led everything to a peaceful conclusion. I spoke with them a bit, she said, but they told me it was all part of your strategy. That was not my strategy. Lilia went quiet, then said, if that's how you feel. She looked displeased, but it wasn't like I was asking her to call something black when it was really white. We fell into silence for a bit after that. Does Aisha, Lilia began to ask, glancing outside the window, sometimes say things that are offensive? Of course not. She's an exceptional kid. No normal child could put that much forethought into her actions at 6. But she's not as great as you. I tried to teach her as much as I could these past few years, but even now my daughter's too stupid to understand how amazing you are, Lord Rudius.
Jesus.
Calling her stupid is going a little bit overboard. Besides, I'd had an advantage in the form of the memories from my previous life. I had considered the possibility that Aisha might be the same as me, but when I tried asking her about the existence of things like televisions and cell phones, she just stared blankly at me. This girl was just an ordinary genius. Paul's genes, as it turned out, were actually pretty incredible. What do you think of Aisha? Lilia asked, as if the question had just popped into her head. Huh? I told you, she's exceptional. I don't mean that. I mean her appearance. I think she's cute, I said. Lilia pressed on. She's my daughter. Do you think her bosom will develop as she grows? What? I had no interest in my little sister's chest. Besides, what the heck were we talking about here? Lord Rudius, if you intend to travel to Asura, please take Aisha along with you. I have to return to the master's side, but Aisha can go along with you, can't she? Can you tell me why you're asking me or why you're asking this? I deflected the conversation back at her. I've told her every single day that she would one day serve you, so it would seem. I've taught her every single thing I know. She's still young, but give her a few years and she'll have a body that all the boys will love. A body all the boys would love, huh? Wait, just a second. She's my little sister, you realize. I know that you're a womanizer. She did? Huh. Okay, then. Still, unlike my former self, it seemed I felt no desire for those related to me by blood. Wait, what? In your
Good.
former life, you had the hots for someone that was blood relative of you. Okay, no. You know what? I'm not going down that. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Getting
that's a
that
can of
habit.
worms that
Yeah,
don't want
which
to
is
open.
why it made me uncomfortable when Lilia presented Aisha to me as if she were a gourmet meal prepared for my consumption. Those were my true feelings, at least. She's still only 6, isn't she? She's at an age where she needs to be with her parents. If that's how you truly feel, she said. Lilia looked disappointed, but I said nothing wrong. Aisha was still young. It was best for her to be with her parents, right? It was my feeling, as someone who was born Japanese, that it was best for a child, pardon me, to be with both their parents while they were little. At least one, if not both, but definitely not neither. I understand. It's true that Aisha is still immature. I can't send her off with you when she's still so inexperienced. Please don't teach her anything too weird, okay? Like, about me being a pervert? I've only ever told her about how wonderful you are, she replied, and because of that she seems to be rebelling. Indeed. Though only for the moment, Lilia said with a quiet laugh, lifting her face. Her expression was bright and sunny. I couldn't take Aisha with me, but I'd already received some precious things from Lilia. One of those things was hanging around my neck on a leather cord. The other was tucked away in a box for safekeeping, and I wasn't going to part with it ever again. Thank you for the pendant and panties. It was no problem. I know how precious those are to you. There was a hidden meaning in her words, of course, since she really meant the panties. I owed her a lot for everything she'd done for me. So, I guess carrying these around really does make people think I'm a pervert. A pervert? Is that something Aisha said to you? Lilia suddenly leaped out of her chair. I had to make a grand show of getting her to sit back down, where she let out a small sigh. She was relatively free to move about the castle, so someone must have put strange things in her head. Strange things, yes. Very strange indeed. If underwear is enough to call someone a pervert, then what would happen if she went to work at the Asura Royal Palace? The Asura Royal Palace? I asked. Come to think of it, you said you used to work in the inner palace, right? Yes. Compared to what I saw there, you and the master couldn't even begin to be described as perverts. That's so freaking true. The Royals? Oh my
Sad.
god. They make Paul and Rudy seem tame.
I know, that's really sad.
One of
especially if
them.
they're worse.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
no.
Apparently, the Asura Royal Palace was where the real gentlemen gathered. It made sense considering there was a certain noble family that I already knew loved furries. Nah, it wasn't just the gray rats that had such proclivities. The Sharon royal family was pretty terrible too. One of them enjoyed women's vaginal. Nope, I don't need a detailed picture, thanks. I didn't need to go any farther than that. Anyway, there are many among the royal and noble families whose preferences run toward the perverse. Compared to that, having an interest in the underwear of someone you look up to is rather normal. Lilia gazed off into the distance as she spoke. She was probably reliving an unpleasant memory. Please give father my regards, I said. Understood. Um, I'll give you some money to cover the trip. Oh, there we go. But it seems like it won't be enough. Just stop. Just stop at an adventurers guild and seek out one of father's subordinates, I asked. Understood. I'm sure these soldiers escorting you can be trusted, but just in case, exercise extreme caution. They're still strangers. There's no problem there. I'm acquainted with all of them. Oh, you are? Then, Lord Rudius. Just as I was busy scrambling through my thoughts for anything else to say, Lilia stood up, walked over to me, and then hugged me to her chest. Her voluptuous breasts smothered my face, and my breathing suddenly went erratic. Miss Lilia, there in my face. You still haven't changed from when you were little, she said with a small laugh. The next day, before we took off, Eris, Regard, and I performed the final check on our carriage to make sure nothing was amiss. Lilia and the others were going to leave before us and had already switched over to a different carriage. Mr. Kennelmaster! Mr. Kennelmaster! Aisha came flying out of the carriage, scrambling across the ground toward me. What is it? Just a moment. She grabbed the hem of my shirt and dragged me along with her. I shot Regard a look so he would understand, then went ahead and followed her. The place she brought me to was a small thicket by the roadside. She crouched and gestured for me to follow suit. I did as she asked and leaned in closer as we were about to have a secret conversation. Mr. Kennelmaster, I actually have a favor I want to ask of you privately. A favor? If it's something I could do, sure. If my cute little sister had a task for me, I would do my best to fulfill it. Norn already hated me, and I didn't want Aisha to hate me too. I seemed to be in her good graces for now. What in the world? uh,
Someone was drawing something.
I see.
Sorry, I'm writing down some notes. I
Ah,
was sketching out some shit.
but that
Trying
was
to do some
because she
organizing.
thought I was the kennel master. Please take me along with you. My eyes went wide when I heard her ask that. Was this Lilia's doing? Did your mom tell you to say that? Perhaps she thought that since I refused her request, she'd use her daughter's tears to persuade me instead. Lilia was more cunning than I gave her credit for. No, there's no way Mother would be okay with that. Every single day, my mother tells me about how I'm going to serve my half-brother in the future. She did say that, I agreed. But, Aisha slammed her fist against the ground, I want no part of it. She really wanted no part of being around me, probably because I got so aroused by underwear. Sorry, I apologized in my head. We talked about it the other day, right? My brother's a pervert. I understand what you were saying, Mr. Kennelmaster, but I just can't bear the thought of serving someone like that. Is that right? So please, I beg of you, save me, just as gallantly as you did the other day from the evil hands of a pervert. I'm going to pass on that. This was no joke. If the two of us traveled together, she'd learn my real name eventually. And when she found out I'd lied to her... Wait, we were family, so she was going to find out eventually anyway, right? Why not? He's a pervert. That's just your imagination, not the facts, I said. Okay, let's set the record straight right here. If I entrusted this task to Lilia, I'd probably be known as a pervert forever. It didn't matter how much she said those in the royal palace were far worse than me. That wasn't going to change Ice's impression of me. You've never actually met him, have you? But there's no mistaking those panties. Maybe there's a reason for those, I suggested. And what reason could he have for treasuring panties? Why? That wasn't really something I had a ready answer for, but For instance, in monotheistic religions, people worship the clothing for that a holy person wore, right? That was especially true when you considered these were the panties Roxy wore when she was rocking her one-handed lady band. Jesus fucking Christ, my dude. All right. This was a rare item that only the highest level players possessed. If you were a player that cared about that kind of stuff, what would you do with it? You'd treasure it for the rest of your life, of course. The motto of my personal faith was lust and studies are both important. Combine the two, and you got sexual studies, the golden standard. Anyway, that aside, Roxy was your brother's former tutor, right? Or correct? Yes, she answered. So she's had a great impact on your brother, right? I suppose so. There was no suppose. I was her big brother, so I knew what I was saying. Roxy was the person who helped me do something that I hadn't been able to do in nearly 20 years. The reason I was living my life like this was because of Roxy. And perhaps he wants to treasure it as an item that someone incredibly important to him wore. She didn't seem satisfied by that explanation. In that case, why not give her an item that her idol, the kennel master, had been wearing? I retrieved something from my pocket. I've used this forehead protector for a really long time. Why are you bringing this up all of a sudden? Because I'm giving it to you. I handed the forehead protector to her. It was something I had bought a long time ago, back when we were in Rikarisu. Even though I'd washed it since, it still had a trace of my sweat, since I'd been using it for so long. Aisha looked a little shocked as she cradled it in her hand. Ah! Now I kind of understand. Does it make more sense emotionally now than it did when I just explained it with words? Yeah, I get it now. So my brother wasn't a pervert, and thus I passed on the forehead protector I used for so long. That said, this kid was way too trusting. Mr. Kennelmaster, you really are a good person. I'm not that great. I gave her my shining, rudiest smile. Aisha watched me with stars in her eyes before she suddenly realized something and muttered to herself, "Oh yeah, right now my brother is still missing. If he's dead, will you allow me to serve you instead?" "No, I'm not sure about that." "You won't let me?" she asked. "I'm sure you'll understand after seeing my mom, but I think I'll grow up to be pretty amazing, with a body all the boys will adore." "A body all the boys will adore." Do you even understand what that means? It means a body that makes you want to start making babies when you see it, right? "A child shouldn't talk about making babies," I chided. At this rate, she'd be swept off by a pervert before she even came into her womanhood. Honestly, who the heck was teaching her this stuff? "Is there nothing I can say that will change your mind? Do you hate me that much?" Her eyes glistened tearfully. "All right, fine. If your brother is never found, then sure. You mean it?" I felt bad for deceiving her. By the time she was older, my journey would be over, and we'd probably all be living together again as a happy family. "Then you're not mad for calling you a pervert?" "No, of course not." "Huh? Wait, what did she just say?" "Thanks, big brother." With that, I just shot back up and ran off to the carriage. I sat there dumbfounded as she leaped up into it. When the carriage rolled into motion, Aisha turned back to wave at me, and Lilia bowed. "See you, big brother. Let's meet again. It's a promise." And off they went. Eris had a completely unamused look on her face as she said, "What the hell? She completely saw right through you." "How?" Regard gave the horse's reins a tug, and the carriage jerked into motion. In retrospect, there were many opportunities for her to realize the truth. I called her by her name when we first met, and when I was speaking to Eris and Regard after that, I'm pretty sure they let my name slip too. So why did she pretend not to know? Think, I told myself, and the answer came quickly. She was probably trying to determine for herself if her brother was someone who could be trusted. If I'd kept up the charade of being the Kittle Master and tried to drag her along with me, I had no doubt she would have turned her back on me. Once I realized that, I laughed. She truly was brilliant. Clever little girl. I looked forward to seeing her once she was older. Oh boy. Chapter 8. An Adult. We left Sharon Kingdom and traveled far, far westward. Our destination was the Asura Kingdom. The road leading to said country was flat, and the weather just warm enough to make you drowsy. On either side of the highway were fields of grass as far as the eye could see, and directly ahead was the faint outline of the Red Worm Mountains. Above them, you could see slowly circling shadows. It was tranquil. On occasion, bandits who totally couldn't read the situation would approach and demand we drop our coin and leave. Eris would kindly grant them their wish by offering her iron fists, sending them scuttling off into the distance. Regard wanted to slaughter them all at first, but once we heard how they were simply hurting for food, he decided to let them go for now. But just this once. Even though this was the central continent, the highway around these parts wasn't particularly safe. I wish they would take notes from the demon continent. Bandits never went out there, although in exchange, monsters showed up in 10 times the number. The fact that people could do as they pleased here was proof of how peaceful this region was. If we traveled just a bit farther north, or to the north, there was a jumble of small countries duking it out. In fact, that conflict was probably the root cause for the rising number of bandits here. Now, let me explain the geographical features around these parts for a bit. The Red Worm Mountains were a huge mountain range that stretched across the central continent, splitting it in 3 parts, with red worms residing within the red worms. With red worms residing within them. Red worms were said to be the strongest monsters on the central continent. Their strength was fearsome enough, one-on-one, but they typically gathered in hordes of several hundred. Of special note was their detection ability. They never missed anything that encroached on their territory, even animals as small as a dog. And it didn't matter how fierce the opponent was. The worms would swarm together and devour it, bones and all. If you trespassed on their turf, you died. That was common knowledge in this world. There were a number of different dragon species in this world. Every single one of them was A-ranked or higher. Among them, the red worm was the most ferocious and dangerous. A single one was a low S rank, but they always came in groups and they always held vast territories. And since the mountain range was the place these creatures called home, it came to be known as the Red Worm Mountains. An impassable mountain range that was a symbol of death. The red worms were dangerous beasts, but they actually had one weakness. They had excellent combat abilities, but were terrible flyers, and couldn't take flight from flat terrain. To fly, they needed to leap off tall cliffs or run down a long slope. Although the central continent had tall mountains, the land was mostly occupied by rolling plains and forests. Therefore, it was rare for those living on the plains to be attacked by a red worm. Granted, there was the occasional idiot amongst the horde that would get caught by a turbulent wind or something and fall to the plains. The High King that falls from the heavens loses its power, or so the saying went. But these guys didn't lose their power. Those that fell close to a human village wreaked havoc, bringing devastation to the area. When this happened, the villagers would call in soldiers or adventurers to deal with the disturbance, even though these extermination requests were S-rank parties of about 10 people were formed to lure the creature into a trap, making them relatively easy to hunt. As it stood, dragon meat and bones were top quality materials to make armor with, and their skin was highly valued as a work of art. Of course, it wasn't just those parts which had value. The entire body of a worm could be utilized for something or other. Although the prize money was distributed among teams of 10 for taking down one of these creatures, it was still enough money for each of them to live lavishly for a year. To be more precise, one dragon was worth about 100 gold pieces. Even though they couldn't accept the mission directly, there were apparently a lot of C-rank newbies who would impulsively take on the challenge just for the lucrative materials they could harvest from a worm's body. Of course, most of them were barbecued alive and then devoured. There were 2 points of passage through these mountains in which vast numbers of red worms dwelled. These were gorges sandwiched between two sheer precipices, known respectfully as the red worm's lower jaw and the red worm's upper jaw. These ravines had existed since the time of the Second Human Demon War and were the only paths at the time that were wide enough for soldiers to pass through. Anticipating that, Laplas had taken the opportunity to unleash red worms on the armies that tried. Regard confirmed that story, so there was no doubt about its veracity. Okay. Our carriage was moving toward the red worm's lower jaw, which connected the southern and western regions of the central continent. Once we made it through there, we would be in the Osira Kingdom. However, we were taking a roundabout route to detour around the mountains, and there was a young miss amongst us who detested indirect paths. We don't need to detour around this thing. We have Regard with us. We could cut right through those mountains, Eris said, being completely unreasonable as she looked at the red worms cutting slow circles in the sky above the mountain range. Don't be ridiculous, Regard answered with a bitter laugh. I had considered that we might be able to cross the mountains with Regard in our party, but even he found the idea impossible. In that case, I didn't stand a chance. After all, I couldn't defeat Regard. But Rudius could definitely do it, Eris huffed. No, there's no way. What are you talking about? Ghislaine said she slew a red worm straggler before. She did. I never heard that conversation. Maybe it wasn't one of those stories from her time as an adventurer. If it had been, Paul would have surely boasted about it. From what I heard, she battled one before she became a sword saint. Oh, all by herself? Well, there were about 5 others who were advanced tier sword fighters with her, she said. And how many of them died? I pressed on. 2, Eris replied. You moron, I thought. That meant their group took a 40% loss. What in the world made her think I could defeat one of these creatures? Besides, I said, there's a difference in strength between stragglers and the ones here in the mountains. After all, these ones are in the air, you know? Flight gave worms a huge advantage against humans. This wasn't a video game where having a flight trait made you weak to bows and arrows. Plus, they moved in swarms. It was one thing to face against the king dragons, whose groups consisted of only a few worms, or the black worms, which didn't form flocks at all. With the way red worms swarmed in the hundreds, there was no way you could hope to pick them off one by one. Am I right, Mr. Regard? Yes, you don't have a hope of standing against a red worm horde. If there was anyone that could, they would be the mightiest champion amongst the 7 great powers. Even the North God and Sword God would likely turn back halfway through. You really think so? Wow. I thought the 7 great powers could easily dispatch dragons, but it seemed I was wrong. Yeah, their stamina would most likely wear out halfway through. Not like you could sleep with dragons around. That made sense. You had several hundred of them attacking you restlessly even at night. Combat strength aside, they'd overwhelm you with sheer numbers. That said, Laplas subjugated the king of the red worms, so those ranked at the top of the 7 great powers could probably pass through without issue. Though if we're speaking of the 7 great powers of old, even the god in last place could have passed through the red worm's territory undisturbed, I'm sure. But I'd still like to hunt one of them someday. Once again, Eris was voicing her usual dangerous ideas. I was sure I'd be enlisted to help her when that someday came. Another tranquil day, just a few more, and we'd arrive at the red worm's lower jaw. I was thinking about the man god while I prepped a meal for the party. More specifically about what happened in the Sharon Kingdom a few days ago. All right. To be perfect, And to be perfectly honest, it felt like things were going a little too well for me. Perhaps the man god, his premonition notwithstanding, also had the power to change the future. No, even if I hadn't been carrying that figure eight with me, I had a feeling Ginger would have lured Zenobia into meeting me anyway. He would still have brought his Roxy figurine, still have given the same speech, and I would have still pointed out that the mole he'd removed. What if I had actually used my real name with Aisha, alone at an inn with her perverted brother? If I were her, I'd have feared for my chastity. Aisha was a clever girl. She was trying to get a letter sent, so she might have stolen my money and made a run for it. I was sure I would have searched for her if that had happened. As soon as I knew she was missing, I would lose all composure and, without any thought for the consequences, blast my way into the air and make contact with Regard. I'd tell him that I'd found my sister, but she ran away, and he'd help me search for her. He was kind to children. I was sure she'd trust him. The more I considered it, the more I started to think that the man god's advice was meant to ensure things turned out more or less the same way no matter what I did. It was probably happening right now. Even if we hadn't decided to accept Regard's help, he would somehow have ended up traveling with us anyway, no matter which eye I selected from Kishirika's arsenal when I met her. I would have been captured by the Doldia tribe in the Great Forest. The man god was taking a lot into consideration as he gave me advice. Perhaps I could trust him. However, just as before, I couldn't fathom his motives. If I could just figure out what he wanted, then I could be more honest with him. The man god was taking a lot. Oh, no. There. As I mulled over my conversations with the man god, Eris and Regard were sparring together as usual. Lately, Eris had gotten so strong it was a real eye-opener. Just a year ago, I could have beaten her easily by using my demon eye. I might even have been able to pull her panties down in the midst of combat. Now, that was impossible. I would probably still come out on top if I used my demon eye and all of my mana, but even then, it wouldn't be close. I'd certainly win if we started the battle with some distance between us, but a long-distance battle would rob me of the possibility of physical contact during the heat of battle, so you couldn't really call that a victory. Back to the conversation about talent. I thought I worked pretty hard, but Eris went above and beyond. The quality and quantity of her hard work put mine to shame. My body just couldn't keep up. My stamina was pretty average, my Japanese standards, but by the standards of this world, I was mediocre. As I was preoccupied with those thoughts, the day's training came to an end. We're done. Oh, we're done. Yeah. Lately, Regard had stopped asking Eris if she understood their training or not. It didn't need to be said anymore. Eris was naturally soaking it up. Eris, Regard suddenly said as she came over to where I was standing. What? Eris took the wet rag I'd wrung out and handed to her. She slipped it inside her clothes, wiping away the sweat. She used to strip down to just her bra and wipe it off, but I got too turned on by that, so now she kept her clothes on, even though it probably felt gross having all that sweat on her body. Sorry, I apologized internally. From this day on, you can call yourself a warrior, Regard said as he sat himself down. A warrior, huh? Not a sword fighter, but a warrior? Why was he... Ah, I finally understood what he meant. Eris slipped her hand under her armpit to wipe the sweat away, then stopped. Does that mean you're an adult now? Regard said quietly. Eris's movements were jerky as she tossed the rag back at me. I used water magic to rinse it, then twisted it tight and smacked it in the air to wring it out. Eris took a seat beside me. I'd seen this expression on her face before. It was the kind where she was so happy that a big grin was threatening to spread across her face, but she was trying to hold it back, thinking she needed to act more reserved. But, Regard, I still haven't defeated you at all. That's not a problem. You already have a sufficient amount of strength as a warrior. Perhaps this was his way of giving Eris his approval, just as Ghislaine had when she permitted Eris to use the title of Advanced Swordswoman. Regerd was now doing the same by telling Eris she could call herself a warrior. Congratulations, Eris, I said. Her eyes darted to me in surprise. Rudius, this isn't a dream, is it? Can you pinch me? You won't punch me if I do? I won't punch you. Since I had her word, I reached out and pinched her nipple between my fingers. Gently, of course, or maybe sexily is more the word in this case. Eris' fist, on the other hand, was not gentle. Where the hell are you pinching? Sorry, but it's not a dream. If it was, this wouldn't hurt so bad, I said, face turning pale as I clutched my jaw. In contrast, Eris' face was bright red as she covered her chest with her arms. That's right. A warrior. She looked down at the palm of her hand, as if she could finally feel the power that was held there. But don't get a big head. That means I'm not going to treat you like a child anymore. Got it? Regerd sounded more like a parent warning their child. Yeah! Eris wore a meek look as she responded, although her cheeks were twitching, threatening to give away her grin. Our meal today looked even more delicious than usual. That night, just as Eris was settling down to sleep, something was bothering me. I called out to Regerd, who was on lookout with his eyes closed. Why did you say that to Eris? He cracked his eyes open slightly and looked at me. Because no matter how much time passes, you keep treating her like she's a child. Okay, let's think about this. Was Eris a child or not? She was 20 years younger than I'd been when I died in my previous life. I'd also been her incredibly patient tutor since she was little. Even as she'd used me as her personal punching bag, what was wrong with me seeing her as a child? Sure, Eris had grown more and more mature of late, and not just in terms of how her body had developed. Slowly but surely, she had started to learn right from wrong. She rarely ever went on a rampage without thought for the consequences anymore. Her wild instincts hadn't completely gone away, but the frequency of her outbursts had decreased. You could say she was in the process of going from a child to an adult, or so I like to think, as if I were better than her. Not that you could call me a shining example of an adult, even as a form of flattery. Regerd quietly shut his eyes. Well, it's all right if you don't understand. For some reason, I had a bad feeling about this. This felt an awful lot like the kinds of final conversations characters on TV had before they got killed off. Mr. Regerd? What? Please put this gold coin in your breast pocket, I said, slipping one of my own out toward it. He looked bewildered. He didn't have a pocket in his vest, after all. Still, he managed to successfully tuck it into a seam close to his breast. All right, and what's this for? A good luck charm. Satisfied, I went to sleep. A few days later, we finally reached the entrance to the Asura Kingdom, the red worm's lower jaw.
Hey, Sonic, we hear that. Sonic. Fixed it.
Oh no, I
Nice.
server muted him.
Oh, I did too.
All right. Anyhow, 4 months had passed since we set out from the Sharon Kingdom. Wait, does this stuff happen normally for you guys? When you guys are reading, is all this background noise a common thing that happens? Because I
From
typically try to mute
Sonic?
myself. No, dude, I've gotten background noise from all three of you.
I mean, I've gotten in the habit of trying to mute myself too if I'm not reading.
Yeah, same. I just mute myself if I'm not reading.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. 4 months had passed since we set out for the Sharon Kingdom. When things happen, they happen quickly. Specifically, bad things happened when you least expected them. In my old life, my parents had died suddenly. My siblings coming at me had been sudden, too. Paul had shipped me off to be a tutor without warning. Being transported to the demon continent had also been abrupt. There was something else I had yet to realize, and it was how harsh this world really was, how easily people died. No matter who a person was, death could come in an instant. There were no exceptions to that. No, there's one or two. It would take me a long time, but eventually I would come to understand death as a phenomena that abruptly robbed me of those closest to me. If I'd known this back then, I wouldn't need to lament so deeply now. If only I'd been more serious about getting stronger. Strong enough that I wouldn't be defeated by anyone. After what happened, I couldn't but be consumed by regrets, wishing I'd walked a slightly different path. There was one thing I could say, though. Eris never failed to impress me. Okay. Shim,
Yes.
you're taking over from here because this is the part I actually wanted you to read.
Okay.
The second turning point, chapter 9.
Here. Okay.
Yep,
I see.
Also, I'm sniffling all over the place, and it's causing me to have to stop too much, and
Yes.
starting to get a little annoying.
The red worm's lower jaw was a ravine with a path that cut directly through the mountains. The road wasn't as straight as the Holy Sword Highway, but didn't split or fork either. It was a territory between country borders that was claimed by no one. Once we got through it, we'd be in the Asura Kingdom. We were in high spirits, sensing the end of our long journey. We were a bit concerned because we didn't know how much our home had changed. But we were also starting to feel a sense of accomplishment. You could say that we let our guard down. You could say that we let our guard down. It was along that path that they came, walking steadily from the opposite direction. They weren't riding horses. They weren't sitting in a carriage. They were just walking. There was a man with silver hair and golden eyes who wore no real armor to speak of, only an unassuming white coat made of some kind of leather. My impression of him was simply that he had a dangerous look in his eyes, and that was about it. His irises were small enough that you could see the whites all around them. My eyes were more drawn to the other person, a young girl with black hair who followed behind him. Upon closer inspection, her hair was more of a dark brown shade, a slightly ashen color. I didn't usually remember people by their hair color, but it shouldn't have been hard to remember someone with pure black hair, except I couldn't recall anyone like that. There was another reason this girl caught my eye. She had a mask pulled over her face. It was a pure white with nothing drawn on it, a mask with absolutely no decoration. There was nothing particularly memorable about it, but yet, if you saw it once, you'd never forget it. If I were to liken it to anything, it would be one of the peel-off face masks from the world of my last life. Since it stood out so horribly, I doubt it was a fashion statement. There he is, or there they are. Since I was so captivated by this girl's appearance, well, not that captivated, I didn't notice Regard sitting in the driver's seat, his face white as a sheet. Eris was the same way. With each step the man took, bringing him closer, her face hardened and her on the hilt of her sword grew so tight that her hands turned white. When the man noticed us, he gave us gave a curious tilt of the head. You. Could you be spared? Doubt crept in when I saw his eyes, with their small irises, narrow. Riju had shaved off all his hair and the jewel on his forehead was hidden. How did the man know? Did Riju exude some kind of smell that gave him away? As I considered the possibility, I turned to look at Riju. Is he an acquaintance? My question was cut short by the look on Reidred's face. His white skin was even paler than usual, beaded with cold sweat. His hand was trembling as he gripped his spear. That expression, I knew what that was. Fear. Rudius, whatever you do, don't move. Eris, you either. There was a tremor in Reidred's voice. I still had no idea what was going on, but I nodded wordlessly. Eris's face flushed bright red when she looked like she might leap forward at any moment. Her arms and legs were trembling. Had the two of them met this man at some point when I wasn't aware of it? That voice. You must be Ruijerd Sperdia. Or, sorry, you must be Ruijerd Sperdia. I didn't recognize you at first without your hair. What are you doing here? The man casually approached us, Regard ready to the spear in his hand. On a whim, I decided to use my demon eye. The man's body splinters into multiple images. There were so many of them I couldn't see the exact outline on his body. What the heck was going on? The one with the red hair. Eris Boreas Greyrat, huh? And the other. Who are you? Not a face I know. Oh well, I see what's going on. Regard Sperdia. You love children. So these two must be ones who were teleported to the demon continent during the incident. You brought them all the way here. He had an all-knowing look on his face as he nodded. Eris was shocked and shouted back, "How did you know my name?" I felt even more confused by her words. So this was the first time they'd met? I mean, this was Eris we were talking about, so it wouldn't have been surprising if she'd simply forgotten. But this man wasn't exactly forgettable. With his silver hair and the way the whites of his eyes showed around his irises. Then there was a matter of the abnormal reaction that he invoked in both Eris and Regard. She'd met him before, there was no way she would have forgotten. Who the hell are you? And why do you know my name? Regard thrust his spear out towards the man. Apparently he didn't know this guy either. What the heck was going on? Regard was famous. He wasn't well known on the demon continent, but if you went to the demon continent, there were many who knew his face and name. I wasn't so sure about Eris, but if you heard her described as a young, red-haired swordswoman, then you could make a rough guess as to who she was. There was more to this strangeness. There was this man's attitude, or rather, the difference between that and the reactions. He came across as friendly. His voice was flat, but I didn't know where it stemmed from, but there was a quality to it that made him sound happy, like he'd been reunited with with old friends. Regis' behavior was the complete opposite, acting as if he might attack at any moment, except he hadn't yet. He was treating this man as an enemy, but he hadn't launched an attack. Even Eris, who was always the first to attack, hadn't moved. And it wasn't just because Regis had told her not to. This is a curious place to meet you, but you seem well. That's good. The man stared at Regard, who still had his spear pointed at him. Then he laughed in a self-deprecating way and took a step back. Seeing that, the girl with the mask muttered, "Are you sure? It's unavoidable at this point." It was a conversation I couldn't understand, lacking any context of what they were talking about. And once it was over, "I'll stay out of your way." The man walked slowly over to the side. The black-haired woman followed him. Regard kept his eyes trained on the man, and of course so did Eris. "You'll know who I am. Eventually," the man said, his words measured and meaningful. Intuitively, I felt that this man knew something. I felt a vibe from this man that was the same as the man gods. I had to get him to tell me what that was, or what it was. "Please wait." Before I realized it, I'd called the man to a halt. He looked back, face etched with surprise. Regard and Eris also looked at me with shock on their faces. "What is it? What do you want?" Greetings. My name is Rudius Greyrat. Never heard of you. Well, it was our first time meeting, after all. Wait, Greyrat, is it? What are your parents' names? Before we get to that, what's your name? I asked. All right, I'll tell you. I'm Orsted. Orsted? Not a name I was familiar with. The only character with a similar name that I knew of was the one who died and kept spouting apologies from the other side. I glanced at Regard and realized he didn't seem to recognize the name either. Are the two of you acquainted? No, Orsted replied. Not yet. Not yet? What does that mean? You don't need to know. Now, who are your parents? He coldly brushed me off. He wouldn't even answer my questions, and yet he expected me to answer his? Well, whatever. I wasn't going to get upset over something that minor. Paul Greyrat, I said finally. Paul shouldn't have a son. He should have two daughters. Well, that was rude. I was right here, looking just like my father. The idiot son who went all the way to the demon continent to make money. As if he'd realized something, Orsted tilted his head. Slowly he approached me. Don't come any closer! Regard threatened him. Yes, I know. He stopped, maintaining his distance, but stared right at my face. I matched his gaze. You don't turn your eyes away, huh? I'd like to turn them away as soon as possible, since the look in yours is so terrifying, I said. So that means you don't feel any fear. His brows furrowed. That's strange. I have no memory of meeting you. Nor did I. This was our first meeting. I didn't know the name Orsted, nor did I recognize his face. So, what do you want? He asked. Well, I just thought maybe you knew something about the displacement incident. I don't. He didn't shake his head, but simply rejected the possibility outright. Huh. Something about his attitude towards me was kind of weird, as if he were being cautious around me, as if he were being more distant with me than he'd been with either Regid or Eris. Well, anyone would dislike being rudely stopped by someone only being needled about this and that. Even if he did know something, I probably wasn't going to tell him or get him to tell me about it. All right, then. I'm sorry to have stopped. It was exactly then, right as I was bowing my head in apology, that he said it. You. Are you perhaps familiar with the name Man God? Finally, he'd said a word that I could understand. Part of the problem was that I'd let my guard down, thinking that our conversation was already over. Another part was that I'd purposely avoided saying anything about the man god to anyone. Now suddenly someone had spoken the god's name, particularly a person who was so thoroughly confused me, or who so thoroughly confused me. So naturally, thinking that this was knowledge we both shared that would continue the conversation, I reacted to it without thinking. I replied ever so casually, I do. I do. He's appeared in my dream. Suddenly my vision changed. Orsted's hand is going to spear right through my chest. It was so fast, as if he were teleporting. I couldn't avoid it. A second was just far too short. Rudius! The vision suddenly disappeared and Regid wedged himself in front of me. He blocked Orsted's attack as I was sent reeling backward. Orsted peered over Regid's shoulder, glaring at me. His eyes were cold. So that's it. You're one of the man god's disciples. It was the same instant that I found myself thinking Orsted was making a false charge. Regid was shouting at me, Rudius, run! You're in the way, Regid Sperdia. Regid swung his spear. I couldn't move. It wasn't that I didn't try to run, just that I didn't even have the chance to try. Regid was taken out in a matter of seconds. All I could do was watch as Orsted easily batted him away, much like a human swatting a fly. Regid was strong. At least he was supposed to be. Even Eris hadn't managed to defeat him once during our entire trip. He had 500 years of experience in battle, which should have made him practically invincible. He should have been stronger than a king-tier swordsman, and yet, I could tell with my demon eye that he'd lost. Through the eye, I watched the whole thing from beginning to end. Time-wise, it probably only lasted all of 10 seconds. There's no way that Orsted was faster than Regid. It was just that with every move Regid made, he was at a slight disadvantage. In the span of a second, this was repeated 3 to 4 times. Each time he moved, he dug his grave deeper. Bit by bit, he was driven into a corner. Each time he tried to attack, his balance suffered slightly, and each attack he tried to launch was stalled. A difference in ability. That's the only way I could describe it. Orsted's skills were just overwhelmingly Orsted's skills just overwhelmingly surpassed Regid's, enough that I could see it clearly with my eye. Orsted was clearly drawing Regid into a trap. He was moving as little as possible and yet at the fastest speed possible, rendering Regid powerless. The perfect combat strategy were made a reality. This was probably what it would look like. Orsted picked the perfect intervals to move in, putting himself at just the right distance for Regid's spear to effectively reach him. It was as if Orsted were mocking Regid, purposefully putting himself in a position to invite powerful consecutive attacks, only to throw him off balance, causing him to stagger, creating openings in his defense, and forcing Regid to guard himself against heavy counterattacks. There was nothing Regid could do about this. There were no methods left to him. He took a fist to his solar plexus, then a second that grazed the tip of his chin. The third, which robbed him of his consciousness, was a fist that bore right down on his temple. Regid rolled twice across the ground before he stopped moving entirely. Orsted could probably have killed Regid on the third punch if he wanted to, but he didn't. Even with someone as remarkable as Regid on his opponent, Orsted was able to hold back. Now then. Ah! The one screaming wasn't me. It was Eris. She leapt in front of me and whipped her blade towards Orsted, fast as an arc of light. Secret technique. Flow. Orsted wasted no time against Eris. All he did was gently stop her sword with the palm of his hand. At least that was how it appeared to me. And yet, that was enough to send her spinning through the air. She flew as though she had been hit with a saint's ultimate technique. Eris had been outside his line of sight. As soon as Regid was done in, she launched her attack from his blind spot. It was an incredibly deft offensive. Or, as far as I could tell, she wasted no time thinking of defense, but jumped into attack with everything she had. In return, Orsted had used only one technique of his own to disable her. Wait, I'd seen something similar before. Paul had shown me something like that. It was a water god style technique. Though Orsted's execution was even more polished than Paul's had been. Ah! Eris crashed into a cliff face. Rocks crumbled from the impact as she landed with a thud. She was so incredibly tough, so I didn't think she was dead, but she might have been she might have broken a bone. Eris Boreas Greyrat, you've honed your skills quite well. I believe you have potential, but you're still unpolished. Eris let out a groan and tried to get back up. Normally, I'd heal her immediately at this point. However, I didn't have the opportunity to try. After all, Orsted's eyes were boring into me. My companions were both defeated in mere moments. The whole time I'd kept my demon eye activated. But all I could see, 1 second in the future, was despair. I saw that no matter what I did, he would do me in. I watched as my future self, just 1 second from now, had his vital points destroyed. My head, my throat, my heart, my lungs. I watched as each one of those was crushed. And at the same time, I had a vision of him just standing there, unmoving. I didn't understand what was going on. If this vision was true, then in a second from now, there would be 5 of him. I couldn't move. I knew that no matter what I did was futile. That whole second passed with me unable to do anything. He slid forward as if defying the laws of physics. In an instant, he was right before me. It was so sudden, like animation without enough frames. In this instant, after he appeared before me, his attack was already over. I'd seen movements like this in some video game a long time ago. It was a post-apocalyptic game where every character had an endless combo or a fatal KO. 6 of my ribs were fractured simultaneously. There was an impact, but it was different from the kind that sent you flying. The same instant, I felt the pressure of another attack hit me from behind. The damage accumulated inside my body. My lungs were crushed. In a split second, blood gushed up my throat and I was vomiting red. It's best to collapse a magician's lungs, he said nonchalantly as I sank to my knees. I experienced an aha moment of acceptance somewhere within me as I watched my lifeblood pool on the ground below. Crushing magician's lungs was the best course of action because then they couldn't chant a spell. This meant I'd lost my ability to use healing magic. Of course, my lungs destroyed, couldn't stay alive. When you die, be sure to deliver a message to the man god for me. Tell him that the dragon god Orsted will be the one to kill him. The dragon god, number 2 on the list of the 7 great powers. Orsted gave me a glance as I curled up on the ground, hands on my chest, and turned on his heel to leave. I realized he let his guard down since I had already received a fatal wound. I hadn't just been defeated. I was at death's door. I didn't know why. Even in that state, I was still thinking about trying to fight back. Perhaps it was because, on the edge of my vision, I could see Eris trying to stand up. More likely, it was because I thought that now that this man was sure I was going to die, he was going to finish off the other 2 as well. Regardless, I launched a stone cannon at him. Why didn't I use a more powerful magic? After all, I had advanced tier magic at my disposal if I wanted to use it. Even later, I never figured out the answer. In that moment, I was most likely just using the magic I was most familiar with. I launched the hardest rock I could, at the fastest speed with the quickest spin. That stone cannon was so powerful, even I was surprised. The rock burned red hot as it flew the short distance from me to him. Orsted is going to look back and smash my stone cannon with his fist. And so he did. The sound of clinking metal, it crumbled and fell to the ground in pieces. Orsted looked at his fist. That was a stone cannon just now, wasn't it? That had some incredible power to it. For you to be able to injure me with such magic is impressive. The skin of his fist was peeled slightly. It barely grazed him. It was no good. I couldn't damage him with my stone cannon. I was sure I crushed your lungs. So you must be using voiceless magic. Is that a power you gained from the man god? What else did he give you? Orsted stared at me. He could have just finished me off, but instead he was watching me as if I were a grasshopper whose legs had been plucked off. I conjured wind magic to force air into my lungs. I choked violently. I knew that there was no point to it, but I forced the air in anyway, filling my lungs before I stopped breathing. An amusing use of magic. What purpose does that have right now? Why not use voiceless magic to heal your lungs? Orsted put his hand to his chin, watching me as if he enjoyed seeing me suffer. Even as my consciousness dimmed, I formed a ball of fire in my right hand. With fire magic, the more mana you poured in, the stronger the heat and the bigger it got. My stone cannon's speed and hardness didn't work, then I would try heat and explosive power. That's enough. Disturb magic! My feeble thoughts of resistance were easily blown away. The moment Orsted aimed his right hand at me, the mana that was beginning to take shape at the tip of mine was swept away. No matter how much I tried to channel mana into my hand, it took no form and dissipated. Even though I was half conscious, I understood. There was interference with the mana in my hand that disrupted it and rendered my magic ineffective. He had sealed my right hand, and I still had my left, so I lifted it and conjured magic between Orsted and myself, unleashing a shockwave. An explosive boom resounded as Orsted flew backward. I was also thrown away from the blast. You nullified my disturb magic. No, that's not it. You're using multiple schools of magic simultaneously. Quite skilled to be able to do that voicelessly. Like this, was it? The man snapped his finger on his left hand. When he did, a small square 50-centimeter window formed in the air. It was a beautiful window adorned with gorgeous dragon-shaped ornaments. More difficult than I expected. I ignored the window and focused on launching the fiercest fire attack against him I could manage. What I pictured in my mind was an enormous flame, a mushroom cloud, a nuclear explosion. I channeled my magic as simply and straightforwardly as possible, as if powering up for a punch. I didn't even think about the fact that Eris and Regent might be caught up in it. I'd already lost the ability to think. Open! Front worm gate! As Orsted spat out the words, the window opened up. In the same instant, the mana coalescing in my left hand was swallowed. The window frame cracked and splintered. The explosion was simultaneously triggered close to Orsted. It was far less powerful than I expected and easily avoided it. What incredible mana capacity. The front worm gate at this size couldn't contain it. It's almost as if you're on the same level as Lapis. Well, you are the man god's disciple after all. Why have you still not healed your lungs? Are you trying to lull me into letting my guard down? That was right before my consciousness cut out completely. I didn't have the ability to discern what was happening anymore. The man was still observing me. Our eyes met. Is that it? In a split second, he closed in on me. There was nothing left I could do. You can't do anything besides magic. My magic was sealed and my legs were frozen, so I couldn't move. I was helpless in the face of his overwhelming murderous intent. In the edge of my vision, I could see the window pane dissipating, and there was nothing I could do. I tried to use the roar that I had learned in the Doldia village, the one that didn't resemble theirs in the least. Orsted readied himself, but of course all I was able to do was spit out blood to no effect. Just mana. What are you trying to do? There was already nothing I could do. My magic was sealed, and nothing indicated I could beat him with physical attacks. The only thing I could do now was prostrate myself, but Orsted wouldn't even allow me to do that. Well, no matter. Die. Ah! His hand speared right through my body at super speed, straight through my heart, an absolutely fatal wound. One my healing magic would never be effective on. How disappointing, man god. Now you're using pawns that can't even coat themselves in a battle aura. Just what are you planning? His hand was coated thickly in my blood when he extracted it. I tried to stand, but my body wouldn't listen. It betrayed me by crumbling to the ground. At the edge of my vision, I could see Eris lifting her head. Could see the stunned look on her face as she gazed over at me. Our eyes met. Uh, uh, Rudius! This sucks. I don't want to die. I still hadn't fulfilled my promise to Eris. Just 2 more years. I just wanted to hold on to 2 more years. If I could do that, I could die without reservations. Let me gather my mana. It's just 1 wound. I'll heal it, I told myself. I couldn't chant the words because there was a hole in my lungs. Still, I could do it. I just needed to slowly focus the mana. It would heal. It would heal. I couldn't die yet. Eris let out a wail. Was he important to you? I'm sorry, Eris Boreas Greyrat. One day you will understand. Let's go, Nanahoshi. Yes. Orsted walked slowly away, the girl following along behind him. Eris couldn't stand, either from the damage she took, or the fear, or maybe the shock. All she could do was scream. She had no sword, so she used her voice. Richard! Ghislaine! Grandfather! Father! Mother! Therese! Paul! I don't care who. Just someone save him. Rudius is going to die. Crap, my consciousness was fading further. Seriously? This was really the end? But I didn't want to die. Hey, Orsted, there's just one thing that's weighing on me. That boy. Wouldn't it be better to just let him live? Just before my consciousness cut off completely, I felt like I heard someone say those words. Chapter 10. The wide, gaping hole in my chest. Before I realized what was happening, I was in a completely white room. Completely white space where nothing existed. Normally, this was a point where I started to feel disgusted. I'd return to being that hideous thing I'd gotten used to for 34 years. Memories from my previous life would flash before me. Regret, conflict, vulgarity, thoughts of entitlement. The memories I'd formed in the last 12 years would grow distant and dejection would well up. I would be consumed with the sense that I'd been caught in a long dream. A sense of unease would fill my chest as if chipping away at me. This time, however, was different. The usual feelings of self-contempt didn't rise up. Instead, I experienced a sense of loss, as if I had a gaping hole in my chest. I looked down to find there was indeed a large opening there. Ah, I knew it. I really did die. Well, Man God was standing there all of a sudden. I hadn't noticed him before. He had his usual irritating smile on his face. For some reason it didn't annoy me today. Wondered why. Maybe because of the hole that had opened up in my chest, or maybe I decided earlier to stop being so hostile towards him. Well, what can I say? It's unfortunate. Yes, it really is unfortunate. You're different than usual. Are you okay? Not feeling good? As you can see, I've got a hole in my chest. Hey, do you mind if I ask you one thing? What is it? That guy, the one named Orsted, he attacked me the second he heard your name. Why is that? Because he's a terrible dragon god. Despite how virtuous I am, he holds great enmity towards me. Virtuous, huh? Well, you are an easy one to hold enmity towards. But if that were the case, shouldn't you have told me this beforehand? You can see all kinds of things, can't you? You knew I was going to run into Orsted then, right? You had at least said something to me about not mentioning you if Orsted asked. I would have. No, sorry. The truth is, I can't see anything that has to do with the Dragon God. Not the future or the present. I had no idea you were going to run into him. Oh, so that's it. But why? He's got a curse on him that makes me unable to see him. Curse? So those really do or actually exist? Yes. You didn't have them in your world? Someone who was born possessing an unusual power thanks to an abnormality triggered by mana? We don't even have the concept of magic in the world I'm from. There were some who said they had the ability to sense the supernatural, but to be honest, they lacked any credibility. Uh-huh. I see then. Well, we have them here. Cursed children, we call them. Odd ones. Orsid is one such example. Well, he's got about 3 other curses as well. So 4, huh? That is pretty incredible. Oh yeah, I've actually heard about that. Blessed children and cursed children, was it? Yeah, that's it. They're the same thing, actually. Humans, just like binaries. So that's it? Or so that's it? So what kind of curses does he have? Well, you saw how Regent and Eris were terrified of him, right? That's one of his curses. Every living thing in this world either fears or hates him. Everyone hates him. Well, that's kind of unpleasant. My spirit would break instantly if that were me. I understand how it feels to be hated. Hold on. You don't need to sympathize with him. He was born that way. He's an evil being who's trying to destroy the world. Come on, don't say that. Anyone who was constantly surrounded by people who hated them would end up wanting to destroy the world. I had the same kind of thoughts in my previous life. I often grumbled about it on the internet, saying I wished everyone would just die. You really think so? I hate him, and I don't really care how he feels. Does that mean you're affected by the curse too? The fact that you can't see him is because of one of the curses placed on him? So he's got a curse that makes him be hated, a curse where you can't see him. What else? Who knows? I can't see him, so I don't know. Okay, if he's that dangerous, then it's all the more reason I wish you told me that someone like that existed. I never dreamed the two of you would ever meet. Walking about a world as vast as this one, the chances of running into him would be like finding a needle in the haystack, right? Come to think of it, I actually didn't feel any hatred or fear or I didn't feel any hatred or fear towards him. Why is that? Isn't that because you came from another world? So those from another world aren't affected by the curse? That's what it looks like. The same thing happened when you met Regerd, right? Huh? Hold up a sec. What are you talking about? Is Regerd one of those cursed children too? Nope. That's just the curse of Laplas's lance. Laplas also had a curse of fear on him, but he transferred it to a spear and passed it to the Spare tribe instead. He made their green hair the key to its effectiveness. Curse? He passed it off? Hey, what's going on? You knew about this from the beginning? You knew about it and that's why you made him help him? You made me waste my time and effort? No, don't get the wrong idea. The curse on the entire Spare tribe will gradually fade away with time. A bit of it remains with Regerd, but since he cut his hair, that immediately reduced its effectiveness. Now that you mention it, Sylphie was bullied about her hair, but I didn't get the impression she was feared. That aside, why the hair? Because it's the source of their mana? Because Laplas's hair was also green. Ah, now I get it. There's something similar to that in my world, too. Using points of commonality and wordplay to put curses on people or remove them. At any rate, thanks to his involvement with you, his curse is fading. There's still a deep rooted sense of discrimination that remains, but with time, and Regerd's own efforts, maybe he can do something to change that. So it wasn't a total waste after all? I'm glad to hear that then. I guess you do put some thought into your actions. Well, it'll be difficult for you to completely erase all the prejudice against the Spirit. It is a complicated matter after all. Still, yeah, at any rate, that's great. Yes, great indeed. Looks like it was worth introducing the two of you to each other. That's the reason you introduced us? That's the case, shouldn't you have just told me that? You had no intention of listening to what I had to say at first, did you? I didn't get the chance. Well, guess that's true. I was pretty hostile when I turned you away, can't deny that. That aside, even Regerd was easily bested by Orsted. I never imagined he'd be that easily defeated. Given his opponent, of course Regerd would lose. Well, yeah, he is one of the seven great powers after all. How could you defeat him? You can't. You can't? I guess there really is that great of a difference in ability? He's the strongest person in this world, even as restricted as he is by all of those curses. The strongest? But the Dragon God is only second on the seven great powers list. What about the first? The Technique God is strong too. But if Orsted actually went all out, he'd be the victor. Orsted can only use the skills and techniques that currently exist, or Orsted can use all of the skills and techniques that currently exist in this world. And on top of that, he can also use his own unique magic that's specific to the Dragon God. All of the skills and techniques, huh? Sounds like a certain post apocalyptic savior I know. Oh, you have something like that, or someone like that in your world too. They can copy all the techniques of every opponent they've ever fought, although they're plenty strong even without that ability, even enough to destroy their opponent with the tip of just one finger. With just the tip of one finger. That is incredible. But so is Orsted. If he got serious, he could destroy this entire world. Just calling him strong seems a bit vague. How strong are we talking? Abnormally? Disastrously? Either way, he can't unleash his real power thanks to a curse. So that's the problem. Those curses sure are a pain. By the way, can I ask you something? What is it? Just a second ago, you said you didn't know about his curses, right? You said you didn't know about them other than the one where he's hated and the one where you can't see the one where you can't see anything to do with him. So why do you know that he can't unleash his real power because of a curse? It's fine. This is the end, so let's just get along. I won't make a fuss no matter what it is you're hiding from me. I understand you cared about Regerd after all, and it was also thanks to you that Lilia and Aisha were saved. I'm not going to quibble over these little lies you told, no matter what your plans were for me in the future. They ended up being short lived anyway. To be honest, there's a lot of other things I'd like to ask you, though, such as why you introduced me to the Demon World's greatest emperor and stuff, or where some of the other people missing were located, or what your real objective even is in the first place. All things that are a bit too late to be asking now. Well, what can I say? We're both failures. So let's be friends. Let's drop the formalities and have a blast together. We can dance naked, show our hidden talents, and of course, I don't mind if we drew faces on our bellies to talk to each other either. The end. Yes, this is the end. I mean, isn't it? I died after all. Oh, I see. You've lost all hope and given up. The complete opposite of how you were when we first met. No. Back then, I died without knowing what the heck was going on. This time, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Besides, I more or less knew that when I died, I'd wind up here. I have no idea where people go when they die, but I thought you'd come to talk to me when it happened. Ah, looks like my consciousness here is fading. Looks like it's about time for us to part ways. I'm glad we were able to have a calm conversation here at the end, at least. So, that's what this is about. Well then, I have good news for you. Hmm? You're not dead. Before I knew it, that was happening, the hole in my chest had disappeared. Suddenly my eyes snapped open. Eris was right there, right before my eyes. I was lying on the ground looking up at her. The back of my head felt warm, and I soon realized it was because she was cradling my head in her lap. Her face was full of anxiety as she gazed down at me as if she were looking at something she didn't want to see, but when I opened my eyes, relief shone visibly on her face. Her eyes were bright red. Rudius, you're awake? Yeah. Ugh. I tried to talk, but instead blood came out. Rudius! Eris wrapped her arms around me. Ugh. I stopped coughing up blood only to start choking violently. Eris stroked my back. Are you okay? I saw the look of confusion on her face and tilted my head. Why am I alive? The wound in my chest had closed up completely. Well, the word completely might have been a little misleading. There was a gaping hole in the center of my robe, and beneath it a scar, as if someone had welded me shut. Holy crap, this is weird, I thought. My right hand didn't have an alien parasite attached to it, though. Just. Hold on. Just a moment ago, when that girl said something, or Orsted, or whatever his name was, used magic to heal you. My question had been mostly rhetorical, but Eris incoherently fumbled out a response for me. Girl? He called her Nanahoshi. Nanahoshi. That girl from before. Yes, I recalled that's what Orsted called her, but hold on. Nanahoshi. Felt like I'd heard that somewhere before. Sometime in the last year, no less. Where was it, though? Ah, that makes sense. Where was it, though? I couldn't recall. So, he just went out of his way to heal the person he just killed? What was he thinking? I was sure he pierced my heart. Severe damage to an internal organ couldn't be fixed with intermediate healing magic, or intermediate healing magic. That meant he must have used advanced cure magic, or something even more powerful. Orsted must have possessed healing magic of such power that it could instantly save someone who had sustained a fatal injury. It seemed the man god hadn't quite been lying when he said that Orsted could use any skill or technique in the world. I was utterly defeated. Even if he was on a completely different level from me, it was still an accurate statement. He ranked second among the world's 7 great powers. According to the man god, he actually was the strongest. Clearly, the title wasn't just for show. What about Richard? He hasn't woken up yet. Upon further inspection, I realized Richard was sleeping on the edge of the road. The carriage had also been pulled aside and a fire was crackling. Had Eris done all that by herself? This is the first time I've seen Richard lying on his side like that, I said. Rudius, you shouldn't talk yet. You were just choking up blood. I'm fine now. Those were just dregs still left in my throat, I said, even as my head remained in her lap. I didn't want to move. I was going to stay here forever. I wondered what would happen if I flipped over and turned my face in a certain direction. In fact, that was the only thing I was thinking about. This was most likely part of humanity's innate survival instinct. When faced with death, people wanted to leave behind offspring, after all. Oh well, whatever. Let's not overthink complex matters. Let's just dive in. Being alive is a wonderful thing, I said as I spun my body around and wrapped my arms around Eris's waist. Took a long, deep breath, and her scent filled my nose. Rudius, you're awfully enthusiastic. I feel like, kind of like, everything just seems to be overflowing. More than usual, anyway. No doubt because of that man, Orsted. Or because I'd had that dream of the man god. I'm repeating myself here, but there was no doubt that I'd felt unusually energetic since I woke up. Then I'm fine to hit you, right? There was a tremor in Eris's. Oh. Then I'm fine to hit you, right? There was a tremor in Eris's voice as it floated towards me, an angry one by the sound of it. Oh well, not like I could blame her. She'd been so worried for me that I'd taken the opportunity to sexually harass her. I'd be pissed off in her position, too. Sure, go ahead. She punched me. Then she pulled me towards her chest and wrapped her arms tightly around my head. Her chest was soft against my cheek. I could hear the pounding of her heart deep within. And from above came the faint sound of her sobs. She was quietly crying. Thank God, she whispered. I languidly reached up and patted her back. Ugh. Chapter 11, Journey's End. Three of us finally arrived. Sorry, go ahead. Okay. All right, cool. My nose is sniffly. I was trying to simulate crying, and then my nose actually started leaking.
It's like,
Yeah, it'd be like that.
okay, it's
Yeah.
that's enough. You don't need to be doing the cry thing anymore. But oh no, you got me the rest of the time. You gotta do the natural process for this.
Yeah, my body was like, hold on, you're still feeling.
You got
not
feelings
done
you
yet.
have to do anyway. You see the Eris over there?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would hope so. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Orsted.
Yeah, or
Orsted.
Sid.
For Orsted to just fucking annihilate them like that strikes me like you fucked up, man god. You did something bad. Well, I never trusted the man god from the start. I was like, who's this weird
Yeah,
white
the way he
man in the void? I
talks.
don't like him. I don't like him at all. I don't like the way he's acting. I don't like his mannerisms. Yeah.
Your
I just don't
choice
trust him.
is interesting.
Well, you read all the books, right? Yeah, so you know. Oh, gotcha.
Mm.
Yeah. Or instead. I see. Wait. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's more easy to say that, like, or I guess it's better to say that Eris did like screw up and like, but not in as bad as like everyone thinks they are. Yeah,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, it's like you could kind of see where people are gonna get that idea from.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, and what she had to go through. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, to be
Yeah.
fair, we also like within the first 3 or 4 books, we had the whole thing with Sylphie becoming Fritz, and like we didn't get any of that until the start of season 2.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's probably what they're doing, just holding it until she finally gets back, and then we can be like, okay, this is where she's been. Ha
Probably not.
Probably.
Unless
Maybe
they do
second
like the
half of
OVA
season
thing
3,
where they're
honestly,
just like, oh,
maybe.
here's Eris's adventure in OVA form.
They could. Exactly.
Or make it like a mini movie.
Shit's about to hit the fan. Again. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Your baby.
Oh.
I think,
Well.
if I remember correctly, I think she actually,
Interesting.
like, treats him like a godfather, if I recall. Or at least like a grandfather.
Hmm.
Orsted. it's been a bit. I might be remember. It's like good friends. Like, they become close. I know that at the very least.
Oh.
The Rudy's daughter and is it not? It might be. I'm thinking of one of his other kids. I might be thinking of it to someone else. One of it, another one. I know it's one of them. I have to go back and check my notes on that one, but I know it's one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The most powerful? Uh.
Either the child he has with Sylphie or the child he has with Eris.
Yeah. I can see
I'm
that.
actually gonna go with the character I'm not gonna say here, the third wife. Richie, you know who yeah. I'm gonna go with Roxy's. Oh, Roxy? Okay, I'm gonna go with Roxy's then. Roxy and Rudy's kid.
Hmm. Oh,
Hmm.
poor Roxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a yeah. That was rough. That's rough for her.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay.
Is it like mostly filler? Oh. Oh, my favorite. My favorite.
Season 2. Oh, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that one.
yeah.
Oh, good. My favorite.
Yeah. Oh.
You're like Rudius meets some
Yeah.
people, some stuff happens. Oh, bears. Okay, we're done.
That's
Yep.
also that is
Yeah.
just not fair to Rudy. Sarah, you bitch. God, she got her panties all in a wad. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. It was done.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's yeah.
And he stopped him
It's like,
full
Oh
on. Was
yeah,
like,
that
no, no,
"Don't
that
you
shit.
fucking do it."
No,
yeah.
stop it.
I know you're feeling bad right now, but you got more shit to live for. Shut the hell
Yeah.
up.
It was so fast too. Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yep. Oh, okay. No, I mean, if everything else from before is anything to judge, it's gonna like,
I mean, I guess if they're at least you're getting more context or stuff, I guess.
uh-huh. Mm, good. Well, that's lame. Huh,
Hmm.
that's cool.
That was September, right? Of last year?
Yeah, I think it was last year. Because we were still reading Slime last year, but I can't remember
Yeah.
what month.
I want to say it was early September. Because I have looked at it before. Get through season 2 by not the end of the year, but like a good another 6 months. Like end of summer, I would say probably at the if we keep the same pace. I don't know if we're gonna get. The one thing I've been saying is that I don't know if we're gonna reach volume 20. Like that's a hard maybe of this. Like if we just read this book specifically, like every Monday, like and do as we've been doing, I don't know if we're gonna reach. We might reach it. I don't know. Oh yeah, I just meant like before the end, the actual end of the year. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yep. Yeah. 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 hmm
That'll be interesting.
Wasn't it greenlit recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. Fair. So I'm gonna try to customize my character into what is it? It's a BTGGF. There we go.
BTGGF.
Yep. Big titty goth girlfriend.
Okay, I was gonna say big, thick,
Ah,
something, something.
big thick booty
That
bitches
works.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Big booty bitches,
My
bitches,
fave.
big booty.
with great power. Sometime because anime church stuff or whatever. Yeah.
This is the greatest and best song in the world.
Tribute.
Tribute. But he's talking about not being able to hear you.
Oh.
Yes.
Wait, he can hear us, but not Richie.
Oh, now I know
Yeah.
why. I forgot to unmute
Oh, that's
myself
weird.
on. I forgot to unmute myself on OBS.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah. I love that. That's the greatest fill in the blank. Yeah, it's so fun. All right.
So yeah,
So,
you've been quiet for a long time too, apparently. So
Oh no!
Oh no. I know because I mute myself on OBS and on Discord. I just unmuted on Discord, but did not unmute on um, OBS.
yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yep.
Stream Deck Mobile, so that the icon doesn't come up on the Discord when like we're showing the stream.
Gotcha. All right, guys.
Thank God for
so,
Stream Deck Mobile. That's all I'll say.
Once again, this Saturday, for those who may have showed up later and missed the intro, this Saturday we are debuting Konosuba Abridged. It will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So do the math in your head and set your calendars, clocks, alarms, whatever you got to do, whatever reminders you need.
Do the
just so you
thing.
know.
Tell
yeah.
Google to remind you of
This will
day
not
and
be
time.
us just sitting down and watching it. We're gonna pause. We're gonna interrupt. We're gonna do a bunch of stuff. It's not meant to replace the actual episode, and we will be showing the YouTube clean version. If you want the dirty version of Konosuba, you gotta go to our Patreon. You gotta pay for that.
Patron.
To be fair, though, it's not very expensive. $1 is enough.
$1 and you have access to it.
Yeah, $1 and you have access.
Oh my
If
gosh!
you
a
spend
single
just
dollar.
$1 a month, you too will be able to help a starving fat dog in need.
That's true.
Poor
No,
Moon
if you
over here
spend-
is pretty starving
In
for
the
knowledge.
arms of the angel.
Fly
away.
We're not
I
those kind of dogs.
don't know the
Yep.
lyrics to the rest of this song.
From this dark, cold
But the
motel
animals
room.
make me cry.
Guys,
Yeah, I mean
Look
that's
at the
the whole
sad
point. They just zoom
puppy.
in on those faces. Guy's got a camera and he just kind of holds it in front of the dog and gets closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
guys. As much as you guys are enjoying the meme, I just want to put something in there that's just gonna sour the mood. That song is about heroin addiction.
That
Yes, it is.
fucking sucks.
I've known that for a while too.
Yeah.
Those poor puppies
I
are
didn't know
addicted to
that.
heroin. They're just gonna be the donations just gonna be feeding their
First-
addictions. What
First
the
we
fuck?
had cocaine bears, then meth gators, and now we have heroin puppies.
That's actually
Thank
kind
you,
of
Sarah
heroin
McLachlan.
wieners.
Yeah, thank you.
Heroin puppy.
I didn't know that was what about. I thought it was just somebody who died, but I mean,
No.
makes sense.
Well, heroin addicts are
I mean,
more prone to that. But
Yeah.
all right.
tends to be how
some-
things go.
But yeah,
The other half of them just live forever.
We're gonna hang out. We're gonna chill. We're gonna watch Konosuba this weekend. So make sure to come by and see that. That being said, that's gonna be it for us tonight. We're really looking
Yep.
forward to finishing this up. Though to be fair, the whole book 7 thing with Sarah, not looking forward to that. I hope we get through that as fast as possible.
I can try and read as fast as I can.
No, you don't have to. What's gonna happen is we're just not gonna correct Sonic anymore. Butcher
Oh,
the
yeah.
fuck out of that book. I don't care.
Let it happen.
Please, let me just go through it. Let's just
Like
let me not worry
Sonic's
about.
gonna read. It will make absolutely no sense. Don't worry about it. See,
Yeah.
I'll
here's
just
the thing.
read a
You know
completely
what?
different
Sonic,
book.
Sonic, that's don't do that. Sonic, that's great. This is the greatest thing, guys. Like we said, we're not a replacement for the actual novels. So you have to read along to at least kind of understand what the hell Sonic is saying. There you go.
At one point,
at
I'm
least
just
this
completely
way so
changing
you
up the
know what
names
is
for,
being
like, slime.
at least this way so you know what it is that he's not saying correctly. Come on, you need to get the volume.
I might just like, all right, who's gonna be Shion? Who's gonna be Rimuru? Who's gonna just completely different names for the characters? Like, if you don't know, I'll
no.
intentionally do fuck ups for chat to figure out.
All right.
And for everyone you get free bits. No,
Free
you get
bitches.
channel points, maybe I don't know.
Free bitches.
Free bitches and free respect.
Imagine we pull up to that and suddenly
some
Sonic
cred,
just starts reading the script to B movie.
Yeah.
According to unknown laws
At
of
one point, I just
aviation.
randomly like it's just like a pre-recorded thing of me having the B movie. Like, oh, I'm gonna play the sound pad here thing, and all right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna meet up and go to the bathroom. Something
All
like
right.
that.
We're going to go ahead and raid Director Nasty, who has already
Yep.
confirmed that he wants to come by and hang out with us
Oh,
for
that's
the show.
nasty.
That's
Nasty.
nasty. Oh,
Oh, that's nasty.
All right.
You nasty.
So just make sure to run through and drop a dog pile raid on.
Well,
Go to dog pile.
Dog pile.
Here we go.
All right, here we go, guys. Later.
bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah, that it was